the higher seed, it's still an upset, but there are things that they can do to win, to play for a national championship. Key players to watch. First one is going to be Cade McNamara. You could also throw JJ McCarthy in here. McNamara's thrown for over 2,400 yards, 15 touchdowns to just 4 picks. This is a guy who is, I don't want to call him a game manager because he's really not. He's able to make some of these throws that game managers just don't make. He has the confidence to throw the ball deep. He has the playmakers to utilize as well. So I think that Cade McNamara is going to play a big role in determining how well this offense does. How does he fit into this offense to make them more explosive? Because we're going to talk about a little bit. Explosive plays may come at a premium, and that might be something that they need to find in order to beat Georgia. Next up I have is Andre Anthony. This is a guy who doesn't have the best stats. He has just over 200 yards receiving. He's averaging 19.4 yards per catch. Now, he is not the number 1, 2, or 3 option in Michigan's passing game. I do think, however, he is the most explosive option that they have. Now, if Mike Sanders still is not doing well, if Eric Hall is not doing well, if these pass catchers that are normally there for Michigan aren't doing well, we've seen, if you go back to the Michigan State game, we've seen what Anthony is capable of doing. If he is having a big game, that gives them a good chance of hanging in this game or even taking a lead and really punching Georgia in the mouth. And this is something where you need to find explosive plays. Like I mentioned, Andre Anthony is a guy that can do that for you. Last, I have Aiden Hutchinson, Heisman finalist, having an absolute monster year. He has been arguably the best defender in college football. He and Will Anderson, you can put those two and debate it all day. Hutchinson deserves to be in that conversation. He has taken his game to a whole new level. It's just incredible what he's been able to do. And he and David Ojabo have been menaces on the edge. If he's able to have an impact, I mean, Stetson Bennett showed that he can struggle. Georgia's offense isn't the most explosive offense that you will face. Their offensive line is super talented, but they're not unbeatable. They're not invincible. So Aiden Hutchinson, if he has a big game, I think that Michigan could be in great hands in terms of pulling off that upset. Matchups to watch: Michigan's defensive line against Georgia's offensive line. We just talked about Aiden Hutchinson, and I think that if he and Ojabo are having great games, I think that this is going to be a long night for Georgia. These are two guys that are going to play at the NFL level, and Georgia has some of those guys too, but whoever is winning this matchup is going to determine a lot in this game and maybe even determine the outcome. These are very talented front lines for both sides. And if Michigan they have the size, they have the explosiveness, they have the power, they have everything you need to compete with Georgia in the trenches. So whoever wins that matchup plays a big role in determining that outcome. Next, Cade McNamara versus Stetson Bennett. Like I said, Cade McNamara isn't really like a game manager. However, he kind of gives off game manager vibes at times. I think that people assume that that's who he is. And Stetson Bennett is kind of the same way. We've seen them both make throws that aren't game manager throws. Stetson Bennett has also taken tremendous steps in his progress, in his development for Georgia's offense. It used to be that he would just dump it off to a check down and throw these short throws. And while he did that for a lot of this season, I mean, he threw for 340 yards against Alabama. Now, most of that was because he had to, because they were behind, but he's gotten a lot better. So this is a matchup that I'm really excited to watch. Which quarterback does better? I think both have a huge role in their offenses, and their explosive play potential really rides on their shoulders. Next up, the interior offensive line of Michigan versus Jordan Davis and Devontae Wyatt. If you're going to win the football game, you have to be able to run the ball if you're Michigan. You're going to go against Jordan Davis. You're going to go against Devontae Wyatt. Heck, even throw Jalen Carter in there too. These are three dudes that are playing at the next level at some point. Jordan Davis and Devontae Wyatt sooner than Carter, but these are guys are going to be a problem. And Michigan's offensive line is really good. They're very physical. If you watch the Ohio State game, they are dudes. They can play with Georgia. And here's the thing: if Michigan happens to get blown out in this game because Georgia wins the trenches, it's just because Georgia has a better game. And it's not that Michigan isn't as good in the trenches. These are dudes that can play, they can play bully ball, and they can handle Jordan Davis and Devontae Wyatt, but they have to be consistent. If they're not consistent, then Jordan Davis and Devontae Wyatt are going to have their way. They're going to live in the backfield, and guys like Hassan Haskins and Blake Corum aren't going to break off those big runs. So how do they do in the trenches, specifically up the middle, to be able to run the ball effectively, which will also help open things up for Cade McNamara and the passing game. Keys to the game for Michigan. We talked about this: physicality. You have to be physical against this team. You have to be able to play physical. You have to be able to take it to Georgia. You have to hit him in the mouth, just like Alabama did in the SEC championship. Find a way to do that and let Georgia know that you mean business. Number 2, get after Stetson Bennett. We mentioned Ojabo and Aiden Hutchinson. Find ways to send unique pressure, or just hope that Hutchinson and Ojabo are dominating. If you get after Stetson Bennett, he's going to throw interceptions. We saw that happen in the SEC championship game. You're going to turn the ball over to your offense. You're giving your offense more opportunities to score the ball and score to increase your lead. If you're able to get after Stetson Bennett, good things are going to happen. Last thing, we talked about this pretty much the entire video: find explosive plays. This is going to be a key really for both teams, but more so for Michigan. Michigan has to find a way to relieve some pressure. Georgia's front seven is insane. They have so much talent, and they're not even going to have Adam Anderson. So it could be worse. This is a front seven that is the best in college football. There's no doubt about that. They're very talented. They're very smart. They will get after you. And if you don't find ways to make explosive plays, you're going to be in trouble. There's just nowhere else, no better way to put it. You have to find explosive plays. Fortunately for Michigan, they do have guys that can do that. Corum is phenomenal. Haskins can score. He scored 5 touchdowns against Ohio State. You mentioned Andre Anthony. The receivers are great. They have the ability to make those plays. They just have to do it. It's one thing to say, like, this is what you have to do, and it's another thing to actually do it on the field. They have to be able to find explosive plays. And I think that you put all these things together, if you're physical, you get after Stetson Bennett and force some turnovers, and you find some explosive plays, whether it's a trick play, whether it's just straight up beating Georgia physically, you're going to be in good hands, and you might play for a national championship. Everybody pretty much, unless you're an Alabama fan or a Georgia fan, wants to see Michigan and Cincinnati succeed. That would be a great story. Now, it'd also be exciting to see Georgia and Alabama play. But if you're Michigan, you have to find ways to switch the momentum in your favor, and doing these 3 keys are going to be the best way to do that.